If Danielle, if you'll please take the roll, please.
Ms. Cordova,
Here.
Mr. Merrick,
Here.
Mr. Self,
Here.
Mr. Rackler,
Here.
Ms. Parker,
Here.
Mr. Lopez, Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Okay,
Hey, if you'll please stand, Oscar's gonna join, he's gonna have the invitation and I will lead you guys to the pledge.
Father in heaven, we come to you again tonight, asking for continual blessing on this community. We appreciate the rain and the snow that we just received from the sky above. We hope that this kind of indicated that in the past on us be good for the rest of our year. I consider this $1 million rain, $1 million snow, and therefore we ask you to continue to bless this community. In the name of the Father and Son. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, its sweet symbol of great friendships among the United Cultures. Hey, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. We are going to start with public comment, and the public has the opportunity to provide comment on subjects regarding city business. During public comment period, speakers' comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the mayor or the council requests more information. The time limit is given an effort to allow the public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt yet efficient manner. All speakers must sign in at the beginning of the meeting, and topics are limited to 6 speakers per topic. We did have a couple that walked in late. Did anybody else need to sign in to speak? Okay, with that, we'll start with Mr. Mike Davison.
My name is Mike Davidson. Thank you, council. I'm sure I may find myself with a differing opinion than some of my friends and some residents of Portales, and that's okay. That's why I'm going to start this conversation out by saying, with all due respect, a decision may be forthcoming to consider removing stage 3 restrictions to stress test our water system and tank level reactions. If so, I urge all counselors to not make any decisions based on a test that is given in off-peak season. A stage 3 water restriction does not allow washing cars, watering landscapes, filling pools, running fountains, rinsing sidewalks or driveways. And we do very little of this in the winter months. I'm feeling any kind of a test during the off-peak season will give skewed data that leads to false results and false expectations. Our condition is being caused by 3 declines: the decline of the aquifer, the decline of our infrastructure, and the decline of our well field production. None of these issues have been fixed. So why would we expect our situation to be better because the tanks are full? The tanks are full because we are on restriction. Our previous public works director did not want to lift stage 3 restrictions. Okay, that's one person. Let's take that with a grain of salt. However, our city manager does not want to lift restrictions. Our previous water technician, Chris Cordova, and our current water technicians have cautioned against lifting restrictions. Sammy Standifer, a previous city manager, recently stood in front of our prior city council and begged them not to lift restrictions. We have paid millions of dollars to hydrologists, geologists, and engineers who have literally all come to the same conclusions about our water system, and they agree we are walking a thin line of this community having sufficient water. We can use this winter to update our outdated drought plan. The new plan defines that 100% of the final stage level decisions will be made by the city council. A pre-designed chart will determine recommended stage level based on supply versus demand. Those performance levels are delivered every city council meeting for stage level approval. I would urge counselors to use this time to absorb the brand new Charles Wilson report. This report answers every question a person could have about our local water situation. Also to listen to others like DBSNA before critical decisions are made. Let's condition our well field to produce at maximum efficiency to prepare for next peak season. Then let's work hard to try to get off restriction the right way by producing more water. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, our next one is Mr. Frank and June Ferguson. I think you may just need a second. Do you want me to wait or do you want to come up? Okay. And this is the topic for this is speed bump.
Ms. Cordova, council members, I appreciate this. I'm speaking on behalf of the speed bump because I happen to live, my name is June Ferguson. I happen to live right in front of that speed bump. Prior to the installation of the speed bump, we had people racing up and down the street on motorcycles and cars, which was extremely dangerous. All hours of the night. And I understand the police force cannot sit out there all day and night and wait for someone to go up and down the road. So I understood that. So when they put the speed bump in, it was a godsend because not only has it slowed traffic down, we no longer have the speeders running up and down the highway. If anyone has a complaint here, it should be me because when your truck goes, when the trucks and things go over those speed bumps in the middle of the night, it sounds like somebody dropped half the town, but that's okay because it's a safety issue. It has slowed traffic down. It's safer. People are actually doing the speed limit. And I understand there was an incident where someone complained that they were almost rear-ended because of the speed bump. But if you use that criteria, then you could also use that criteria for any stop sign in this town. You can't regulate how people drive. So I'm asking that you leave the speed bump in place, please. Thank you.
Okay, next on the list, we have Gilberto Gonzalez. For this, we'll have Melissa Carrillo as our translator. Que si puedes ponerte en el podio y luego nomás decirnos tu nombre.
Ujú. Mi nombre es Gilberto González. Vengo representando a Omar González, el dueño de la propiedad de la 700 Eveline. Y hablé con él para el asunto de la propiedad y dice, pues él no puede venir ahorita.
Okay, denme un momento. Okay.
He does say, good afternoon, to everybody. His name is, Gilbert Gonzalez. He is here for the property of 700 South Abilene, which his son is the owner named, Omar Gonzalez. He did talk to him, to his son about, the situation. Right now he is deployed, so, he doesn't know what is gonna go on. So he's here to speak in behalf of what, he can.
Okay, señor González.
Y pues quería saber qué es lo que proponen hacer con ella ustedes. Él dijo que tenía pensado arreglarla, reconstruirla, pero pues él no puede venir ahorita.
Okay, so he is asking what is the plan right now. He did talk to his son about it. His son did mention he wanted to fix the house. But he's wanting to know what is the plan right now for the 700 South Abilene.
And Mayor Pro Tem, this is on item, the very last item that will be for discussion, so I'm not sure if it may be more beneficial to wait until that time to talk about it, but Kelly will have more information for everybody.
Okay, so vamos a tener, la última cosa que vamos a hablar va a ser de la casa. So I'm just stating to him that the last thing we are going to discuss will be about the house, and then we can have further information for him at that time. So, en eso, ahí es cuando te podemos dar más información.
Okay,
Okay, y si quieres sentarte,
gracias.
usted. Okay, next item is meeting minutes of the previous meeting. The meeting was held on January 23rd, 2023. They are in your packet for your review. and if you were able to read them, and have any comments, questions, not if I can have action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rockler and a second by Mr. Lopez. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have presentations. We're gonna switch this up just a little bit. Mr. Kathy's gonna go over, his recognition for his lieutenant. So we're gonna do item line 2, recognition of Second Lieutenant Tyler Watson for earning the Paramedic Challenge Coin. Chief Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, for allowing me to do this special event. Just a little history. In 1974, the city of Portales took over the ambulance service from the mortuary. In 1984, PFD obtained the special skill for manual defibrillation, and in 89 for endotracheal intubation, both at the intermediate level. And then 29 years ago, in 1995, we began providing paramedic level emergency services. At one point in around 2010, nearly all of Portales Fire Department personnel were paramedics, all but 2 really good intermediates. All that said, Portales Fire Department has a long history of providing excellent patient care. This last year, we received a special skill for ketamine at the paramedic level. A little bit about Tyler. He's the son of Lieutenant Scotty Watson that I grew up with at PFD. And he came to us joining the family business. And we greatly appreciate that and all of his tireless effort through paramedic school that we'll talk a little bit about the requirements of during my presentation. But he obtained his national registry in New Mexico EMT paramedic, and Counselor Merrick has graciously offered to give him his coin. So thank you.
The reason I'm giving you this coin is because, Scotty was because he would be super proud.
Okay, our next item is, Talis Fire Department 2023 Annual Report. Mr. Cat.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm going to try to communicate this fairly quickly, but if at any point you have questions, feel free to stop me. During our officers meeting, as we go to the next slide, we often talk about what it takes to truly be prepared and ready to serve our community, to ensure that we're providing the highest quality service. That goal and that mission, coupled with our current staffing, has led us to the priorities of personnel immediate and long-term safety, as well as our performance on emergency calls for service, which takes pride in ownership, safe operational staffing levels, safe operational equipment, high quality training, and efficient and effective apparatus checks. As we move on to look at our accomplishments from the previous year, we had 2 personnel obtain their EMT intermediate, 2 get their EMT basic, 4 personnel get their firefighter 1 and 2. We received $25,000 from the Trauma System Development Grant for our 4th powered stretcher. We've successfully eliminated mandatory callback, and our EMS billing specialists continue to do an amazing job collecting 87% of the collectible amount, which equates to just under $940,000 last year, billing to a little over 2,100 claims. Also, we've instituted the computers in the ambulances that'll have decreased our reporting times for our personnel. That also has CAD, and we have successfully implemented our I Am Responding phone dispatch. Also, I'd like to mention I did receive notification that our baby box should ship in the next few days. Also, there's 2 really important bills to the fire and EMS service that will be going to their respective floors hopefully this week, so that they can get approved to send to the governor. That should secure about 30 million for fire and EMS across the state. As we move on, we're going to talk a little bit about our I Am Responding phone dispatch. So what this does is it has 2-tone detection. So when dispatch tones us, it records that initial dispatch information. And depending on each person's individual settings, it'll send them a text message that they can click on and play that recording, or it'll send them an alert in the app so that they can replay that recording if they need to. Also, it does our group alerts, like last night where these guys got a structure fire at 1:30 in the morning. They needed extra help, so they call in a group. So it not only tones their radios, but it also hits on their cell phone. Also with that, when a unit goes en route, it sends CAD information, as you can see in the middle screenshot. That tells us where the call is, what the type is, and some dispatch information. Also, under that, there's a little map that I circled in red in the bottom left-hand corner that opens that third screenshot that gives turn-by-turn directions to the call, as well as I'd like to credit Lieutenant Chacon that entered all of the Knox boxes for our community, as well as all the hydrants. City hydrants are in yellow, out-of-service hydrants are black. The reuse hydrants, I believe, are red, and the county co-op hydrants are orange. I'm gonna pass this around because I know some of the council has mentioned they were interested. If you'd like me to sign you up for this system, I can. And if you'd like to set up a 48-hour ride along, feel free to contact.
48 hours, huh?
That's the regular shift for these guys. As we move on to the next slide, specifically with our current staffing, we have 3 shifts of 8 personnel. Each shift has a battalion chief, a lieutenant, a second lieutenant, and 5 firefighters. As you can see, we try to balance our EMS certifications and experience. And as we go to the next slide, you'll see we also try to balance our fire certifications. And that's a breakdown of all the certifications per shift. As we move on, as I mentioned about the training, each new hire goes through about 350 hours of orientation, new hire training. How to operate a stretcher, how to drive an ambulance, how to do checkouts on the trucks and apparatus to make sure that they can do the job that we're paying them to do. Then every year, each year, we have to do 336 hours of ISO training for our ISO score, which is fire training, and then EMS recertification training, which is 336 hours. An EMT basic course is 150 hours, wildland class is 10 hours, hazmat awareness and operation is 40 hours, firefighter 1 and 2 is 88 hours, intermediate 400 hours, driver operator 88 hours, and then the big one, paramedic, at 1,600 hours. Then the remaining 3, fire instructor, fire officer 1, fire officer 2, are all 44-hour courses. So if we hire somebody that has no experience in certifications and then train them up through our department, in the first 2 years, they have over 1,700 hours of training. If we extend past that to paramedic, driver operator, and also add in the annual training that's required every year, they have over 4,200 hours of total training. As we move on, currently the average age in our department is 30. Average experience level is 3.6 years. And right now we have 11 personnel with 1 year or less experience. Moving on to the next slide, we'll look at our turnover. Last year, we lost 11 personnel. The year before, we lost 16 personnel. So in that 2 years, we replaced more people than our total department. So as we move on to look at annual hours worked, our personnel averaged just under 3,800 hours for the entire year, almost double a 40-hour work week. This is just employees that work the entire year. They work their 2,756 regular scheduled hours, plus 853 averaged hours of overtime and 134 hours of holiday worked. So as we move on, we'll look at some graphs because I know some council really likes graphs. The one that liked pie graphs isn't on council anymore. But the earliest we have data is 1989, and it's then from 1992 to current. The green line is our total calls for service. The blue line is EMS. And then the red line, of course, is fire. So historically, our run volume increases about 3% per year. But in 2021, we saw an over 35% increase in run volume. So as we move on to the next slide, this is that 1989. And I'd like to point out who's in the picture. There's a lot of great men in this picture. From left to right, we have retired Chief John Bridges, retired Captain Arlie Hamner, retired Chief Johnny Johnson, previous training captain Steve Poteet, previous firefighter Joe Lucero, retired firefighter Dickie Massey, previous fire chief Mike Miller, and retired Captain Gary Watkins. In 1989, they did an article, it's actually in 1991, in the EMS communicator put out by EMS Region 3. And in their February-March issue, Portales Fire Department was highlighted. They ran 1,201 total calls, 68% were EMS, 32% were fire. At that time, they had 18 total personnel with a fire chief, a training captain, 3 shifts of 5 personnel, and then 1 EMS billing specialist and secretary. In comparing that data to 2023, our run volumes increased 177%, but we've only increased staffing 60%. At that time, they had 4 ambulances, and it was a different time. They were responding to further, and at some point, they were transporting to Clovis instead of to Roosevelt General. But they had 4 ambulances, and we only have 4 when all are operational at this time. So as we move on to the next slide, we'll talk about the run volume for the year. We ran 3,329 total calls, 86% were EMS, 14% were fire. Within that, 88 cardiac calls, 30 of which were cardiac arrests, 377 traumatic injuries, 127 breathing problems, 119 psychiatric problems, 64 seizures, 20 structure fires, and 60 grass fires. But the overwhelming concerning number is the 857 instances where our response capability got overran, causing delays in response and care to our community. That's 25.7% of our total run volume. A quarter of the time, we didn't have enough people to respond. So as we move on to the next slide, we're going to talk about response time. So the average response time on an EMS call is 4.9 minutes. The average response time on a fire is 6.3 minutes. Response time is a very important metric because time can mean heart muscle. Time can bring more damage to your brain. Time can also mean more blood that leaks out if we're not able to respond, more fire that happens if we can't get there in a timely manner. So it's very important. They typically talk about the golden hour, where the goal is to get somebody from the time the incident happens to definitive care in an hour. Well, where's our closest level 1 trauma center? Lubbock. So by ground, that's really difficult. That's where the helicopter is very important. So let's move on to the next slide. We're going to talk about EMS calls by zone. As council's well aware, our city is divided by east and west by Main and north and south by the railroad tracks. Anything outside the city limits is classified as county, and anything originating at RGH is classified as RGH. So 47% of our EMS calls were in the southwest zone, 15% in the southeast, 13% in the northwest, 5% in the northeast, 15% in the county, and then 5% out of RGH. And the ones out of RGH are your interfacility transports to the airport or to another hospital. As we move on, we'll look at calls outside the city limits. Last year, there were 564, which was 16.9% of our total run volume. 422 were EMS, and the remainder were fire. It averages out to 47 calls per month outside the incorporated city limits. As we move on, here's where it gets fun. We're going to play a little game of fire and EMS, true or false, and I'll help you out. So true or false, Dallas Fire Department fills up swimming pools with their fire truck. False. Okay, the reason for that is we don't have enough personnel or apparatus to provide this type of service to our community, not to mention the water issues that is on everybody's mind. Okay, true or false, Dallas Fire Department personnel get paid to sleep. False. We get paid to be ready to respond, not to respond. Not to mention, statistically, 20 to 30% of our EMS run volume alone, just EMS, not the fire side, happens from 9 p.m. to 5:59 a.m. Last year, it was 25.4% happened in that time frame. True or false? Firefighters sit around watching movies and playing games all day.
False.
False. Okay, the amount of time it takes for each call leaves us about 8 hours a day after the incident, and every incident requires a report. Then that 8 hours is ate up by training, community risk reduction, training for the city. Then there may be a little time for rest, for nutrition and exercise. Okay, the next one, true or false, firefighters get paid less because their schedule allows them time to work a second job. I say that's false. 24-hour services are a very difficult animal for the general public to understand. The almost 4,000 average hours that our personnel worked drastically decreases the amount of family time for hobbies, to de-stress and to decompress from the things that we have to see. Not to mention leaving that time for a second job. The next one, true or false, PFD rescues cats from the trees. Andres, don't answer.
True.
False. It goes along with the swimming pool answer. Risk personnel safety, we only have one aerial truck. If that truck's tied up or something happens to it on that incident and we can't use it on a true emergency, then that further decreases the safety of the public and we can't afford that. And one that we've seen a lot on social media here lately is that Station 2 is a waste of taxpayer dollars. So I thought it would be wise to kind of talk about how that came to fruition. So La Costa donated the land, which we're extremely grateful, and we give them all the credit for that. The city put in $200,000. Chief Knuckles did an amazing job of rolling over fire fund of $500,000 for that initial $700,000 down payment, which left $1 million loan that's paid for out of our fire fund that gets taken off the top before we see it every year. And fire fund is a distribution from the state of a portion of homeowner and business insurance that gets sent out through formula funding. Station 2 actually earns us it's classified as a main station. It earns us just under $65,000 a year at minimum. So it more than pays for its loan in itself. I hope that answers any questions as we move to the next slide. Are there any misconceptions that y'all heard that you would like for me to address?
So one of the misconceptions that I have is that Station 2 is never gonna be manned. So can you speak to Station 2 and where
Yes,
our
ma'am.
personnel is and what certifications they have to be there?
As I mentioned before, right now we have 11 personnel with 1 year or less experience. It would not be safe to send 3 brand new people over there. They don't have someone to train them or much less have any certifications. Can they treat a patient? Can they find an address? Can they pump a truck? Not to mention, I would love to be able to staff it tomorrow. But I think the mistake that I personally made when we started that is we watered down Station 1 to be able to staff 2 stations. So we made a weak station and a weak station. So to truly do it effectively, and for me as the fire chief to say that we will have that station staffed 100%, we need to add personnel. But that need is not just to put people in that station. That need is more to the 850 something times a year, the quarter of our run volume that we get our response capability overrun. Because that's the whole reason for that station. We outgrew our current station. Run volume increased. We needed to add more people to accommodate that. So we built that station. And it was perfect placement to have one on each side of the tracks to protect both sides of our city. So does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, sure does. Anybody else?
No. So with some of our new counselors, I thought I'd just do a quick rundown of how we're funded. Last fiscal year, our total operating budget was just over 4 million. 9.9% of that was from fire fund. 0.4% of that's from our EMS fund that will hopefully be increased this next year. And then 68.4% of it is from our city funded budget that's supported by our EMS billing revenue, county reimbursement for services, and our wildland reimbursements on grass fires.
Kathy, we have a question.
Yes, sir.
On your graphic, you say EMS billing revenue is 834,750.
Yes.
On your other slide, it said it was 930.
This slide is from last fiscal year.
Okay, but
The,
that's.
the other slide is from the previous calendar year.
Okay, I just wonder why.
Yes, sir.
100,000.
No, that's a very fair question. I appreciate that.
Mr. Rockford, did you have something?
Okay. As we move on, some of our ongoing projects is to increase personnel per shift to get to safer staffing levels for the community and for our personnel. Improve employee development and training. We'd like to get 3 additional personnel certified as paramedics. And then all personnel EMT intermediate and firefighter 1 and 2 certified. And then as far as our equipment, we need to fund our apparatus replacement plan. We need to continue maintenance of our aging high mileage fleet. It'd be really beneficial to our community and the services we provide if we could add a 5th type 1 ambulance, preferably 4-wheel drive. And then a new fully equipped rescue engine so we can have 1 at each station on both sides of the tracks, to not minimize the delay of that piece of equipment or that capability responding. As we move on to look at goals, some of our midterm goals is to continue working to decrease burnout, improve retention and recruitment, institute our health and wellness program. And some of our long-term goals is a 3rd staffed main station, which ideally would go in the southwest portion where the majority of our calls are. A true ISO certified burn facility, training facility, and then administrative office, all of which will improve our ISO score, in which will lower business insurance and homeowner insurance, as well as increase our fire funding from the state. So,
Kathy,
yes,
can you
ma'am.
Educate us on the ISO rating and what that means, please.
So an ISO score is a community score. Each area gets its own portion of the points. They get water capability points, you get dispatch points, and you get fire department points. It's broken down based on staffing, equipment, response times. Training is a big one. Community risk reduction is another good one. So it's like golf. The lower your score, the better. Right now, we are holding steady at a 4. With our increase in run volume and not increasing our staffing, I would venture to say it'd be very tough for us to maintain that and not retrograde to a 5, which would increase homeowner and business insurance, as I mentioned before, as well as decrease our funding from the state. But if we can make those improvements, then we could eventually, because realistically, with our capability, the great personnel that we have, I think we should be a 3. If we can get our staffing up so that they're not spending all of their time on calls, they can actually do the training that they need. And that will increase that score, which will get us to where I think we should be.
One more question, Chief Kathy.
On your long-term goal, you said 3rd staff station.
Yes, sir.
How can you project 3rd staff station? You can't fill the 2nd staff station.
Well, we've been fully staffed for about 2 or 3 weeks now. And we've continually been able to bump that and to maintain staffing pretty consistently.
I guess what I'm trying to get to, Chief, that your argument, your discussion a few minutes ago is that you can't staff the 2nd station, but your 3rd term, long-term goal is to staff another station. So why would you jump over that to staff another station?
We're not jumping over that. It's long term.
I know it's a long-term
Yes.
goal, but should that be the goal too?
Well, it is, and it's in the process. That's why we got to get to the safer staffing levels so that we can appropriately meet the calls for service and fill that station.
Well, I think I would like to see in your vocabulary and on your graphic,
Mhm.
staffing the 2nd station.
Yes, sir. And that falls under under our current ongoing. Could you go back to that slide, please, ma'am? Where we talk about safer staffing levels so that we can increase our response capability, which would fill that station.
Okay. All
Does
right.
that make sense, sir?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
And the longer we have the staff, the more certifications they'll have, so the tenure
Yes.
increases.
Which, and that gets me to my next request, which is on the next slide. To respectfully request your support to increase staffing so that we can improve community and personnel safety, as well as staff that station, as y'all mentioned. Also improve public safety hourly wage so that we can retain and recruit our highly trained personnel. And not just our department, but the other public safety departments within the city as well. And then to fund our vehicle replacement plan. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'll be glad to answer any other questions if you have it.
Mr. Kathy, can you tell me tell us how many apparatuses and vehicles you have that are out of commission?
Right now, we have 1 brush truck for sure and 1 tender that is out of service. But
all
our
your
newest
ambulance-
ambulance is 9 years old. We have a 1978 Hendrickson that's in service that should be a parade truck.
So I want to have an opportunity to give kudos to the chief, to the young man, and to him came and rescued me basically on a personal deal. I had a hit and run accident, and chief and the staff was there immediately. They looked me over and said I was okay, but their response time was just like that.
Well, to be quite honest, sir, we didn't get toned to that. I just happened to be going to get pizza for the guys that were on the street.
When I get in the intersection, go get more pizza.
Yes, sir.
I should have just left that one out right there.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief Kathy, in your opinion, what do you need to keep retention going?
In reflecting on the exit interviews from personnel that have left, decreasing workload per person is in short second to pay.
Anybody else?
And do you have any comparisons on a city of this size in pay scale compared to someone comparable?
I mean, it's every department and every city pays a little differently. And if you go online and you look, they may advertise, well, they make $27 an hour. But that's figured on a 40-hour work week when these guys work on average of 56. So it's hard to get down to it. But in talking with other fire chiefs, and I know Artesia is a hard example, but they are approximately the same size. But Artesia, Eddy County, Los Lunas, they're all in the $18, $19 an hour starting rate.
Yeah, but they got a lot of oil.
Yes, sir. And I actually accused them of that and they shut me down really quickly because the way the state changed the revenue from that, they don't get nearly as much as they used to.
Well, I know, all I know is that you guys are doing the best job that I ever
Thank
seen
you.
in the state.
We're doing our best. And as you can see by the time these guys are investing in our city to make sure that the calls of service are met. I just can't tell you how, caution you enough to that 850, however many times, that quarter of our run volume, that scares me because going back to our response time, on a first call, our average response time is 2 to 3 minutes. It's great. Second call, right after that, 3 to 4 minutes. Still acceptable. We're okay with that. Then we're out of people. So then that third call, that fourth call, that fifth call, they're waiting for overtime to come in. They're waiting for other people to clear the previous call or their other assignment before they can respond. And it scares me to think that what if that's a bad car wreck? What if that's a seizure? What if that's a cardiac arrest? What if that's a structure fire with somebody trapped? And that's where I'm at as the fire chief and what concerns me.
Did you happen to say how many employees you would need to? Did you have
So,
a magic number?
You know, that's a tough thing to look at because NFPA doesn't look at city budgets and what they can afford. Because the NFPA recommends 16 people on a residential structure fire. So that'd be 16 people a shift. That's doubling what we have now. And I look at it from a more, I guess, fiscally responsible time frame. If we can get to a point where our minimum staffing is above our average calls per day, that's the sweet spot for the services we provide and on the city budget. So realistically, we need to add 9 people, 3 a shift, which would get us fully housed in the station capabilities that we have now and working towards that long-term goal of another station. Thank you.
PJ, thank you. We appreciate your department. I know that the other day y'all had, I think it was 5 calls in less than an hour and you were right across the street from my house and I saw how fast y'all had to move and get things done. So thank you. And thank you to your staff and thank you for your staff for always being here too. They always make it to the meetings to be a vital part of what we're doing. So we want to show that support back. So thank you guys.
Well, I always tell people, and I shocked a guy at City Hall the other day. I always just said, hope you never need us. So.
I hope you don't either.
Okay, moving on to our third item in presentations is Employee of the Month for February. That is Miss Ashley Flores. She's unable to attend tonight due to an illness. She is our Utilities Projects Administrator, and we just want to thank her for her hard and outstanding performance and dedication to the city and to your community. And Sarah will read her nomination.
The city hired Ashley Flores in early 2023 as a public utilities administrative assistant. In October of 23, Ashley was promoted to the public utilities project administrator. As she says, it's a lot of words or titles. From the time Ashley started with the city and ongoing, she has took the initiative to learn her role, study our water system, learn about wastewater and much more. She completed both water trust board applications with little help and ensured that it was submitted on time. She is even willing to step in and help any other department if they need it. She exemplifies what it means to be a team player for the city as a whole. With that being said, Ashley Flores has been nominated as our February 2024 Employee of the Month by me, the city manager.
Thank you. And we'll make sure to get her.
Okay, item 4 is Martin Luther King Junior Celebration winner of the Dolores Penrod Award essay. We have Carlos here who's going to come to the podium and introduce himself and read his essay for us.
Good evening. It's very nice to be up here and talk to all of y'all on this educational opportunity. My name is Carlos Biscup. I'd like to just say thank you one more time for being able to speak with all of y'all and look at every one of y'all in your wonderful faces. Okay, without further ado, this essay was labeled 2023 Critical Thinking. I start off the essay. Martin Luther King Jr.'s profound words on education, critical thinking, character, and nonviolent action are as relevant, if not more, in 2023 than they were during the Civil Rights Movement. His emphasis on the fusion of intelligence and character within education underscores the importance of not just acquiring knowledge, but also cultivating the moral compass needed for responsible action. Currently, his ideas resonate deeply, especially in advocating for nonviolent action amidst global changes. King believed that education should not merely fill the mind with information, but should embody individuals to think critically. Critical thinking enables people to analyze situations, question society norms, and envision a better future. In 2023, amidst societal complexities and challenges, fostering critical thinking skills is crucial. It allows individuals to navigate misinformation, comprehend diverse perspectives, and actively engage in problem solving for issues like social injustice, environmental concerns, and political differences. With that being said, King's emphasis on character development alongside intelligence is pivotal in advocating for nonviolent action. Character encompasses empathy, integrity, and a commitment to justice. In today's world, where conflicts often escalate, nurturing strong character traits is vital to promoting peaceful resolutions. Nonviolent action, as advocated by King, isn't merely the absence of physical violence, but a disciplined, strategic approach rooted in moral strength and ethical principles. King's teaching on nonviolent action can guide movements advocating for change. Peaceful protests, civil disobedience, and grassroots activism are potent tools in driving societal and political transformations. These actions draw strength from a commitment to justice and a belief in power of collective efforts to effect positive change. Furthermore, King's emphasis on education for critical thinking and character align with the need to address systemic issues that perpetuate inequality and division. Education systems play a huge role in shaping individuals and society. Reforming education to prioritize ethical values, personal development can foster a generation that actively works towards a more equal world. In essence, King's vision of education, critical thinking, character, and nonviolent action offers a timeless blueprint for addressing contemporary challenges. In a world grappling with complex issues, his teachings serve as a beacon, urging individuals to cultivate not just intelligence, but also the moral fiber needed to navigate conflicts peacefully, foster inclusivity, and strive for a better tomorrow. Embracing these principles in 2023 is a tribute to King's legacy and a pathway towards a more compassionate and just society.
We had an opportunity to present this to the school district several years. Carlos basic essay was the best one and of the 5-year period. And we awarded him a $500 scholarship. And he's gonna go into CCC and take up a trade and become an entrepreneur. He wanna be in the business on his own and make some money. And when you hear this young man speak, it's a talent that's gonna be well used. And he was one of 12. And there was tough competition. And the language department at Portales High School need to be congratulated for what they do with our young men and women. And appreciate you, Carlos. And I hope we can make this an annual deal that the essay winner will come to the city council and read their essay, because I think the community should hear their work. I can't make it an action item, but my attorney rolling his eyes. However, we really appreciate it if my colleagues was considered as put it on the agenda and make it an action item so we can have this every year. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, item 5 under presentations is a proclamation for human trafficking prevention. Whereas human trafficking is a public health issue and crime that exploits the most vulnerable among us and weakens the health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities across generations. An estimated 27.6 million people are subjected to human trafficking globally, including cases of human trafficking reported in every U.S. state and territory. Whereas people can be trafficked in person and online in industries such as restaurants, domestic work, construction, agriculture, and factories, and by strangers or someone that they know, including employees, partners, and family members. Whereas human trafficking can be prevented by building individual, community, and socialite understanding and resilience, reducing social inequalities, and addressing the conditions that contribute to exploitation. Now, therefore, I, Veronica Cordova, Mayor Pro Tem of Portales, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2024 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month in Portales, New Mexico, and encourage all citizens to join in observance. But that's that proclamation, and we will give this to Ms. Dan. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 6, the DBSNA engineer report regarding preliminary engineering report per the water well system. We do have Miss Jennifer Hill on the line. Miss Jennifer, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, we will turn it over to you. Thank you.
So let's see. Were you gonna give me permission to share my screen?
Chris,
You have
okay.
permission.
Okay, I'm getting the message that host disabled participant screen sharing.
I think she just re-enabled. You might want to try again.
If not, we can bring up the clarify if this.
Yeah, it's not working.
Okay, we'll bring it up on our end.
Okay, well, hello. I'm Jennifer Hill. I'm a senior engineer with Danby Stevens and Associates. And I worked on this latest version of the preliminary engineering report for water supply for the city. And I also worked on the prior version of this report that we did in 2016. So I was told you wanted me to focus mostly on the geophysical surveys, but can you go down a couple of slides? Yeah, go up to the one that just has our scope of work. So up a couple of slides. So we prepared a preliminary engineering report that evaluated the water system. And then along with that, we prepared this environmental information document. And that document makes it so that the PER, which is a format that is referred to as the unified funding format because it's recognized by different funding agencies, including federal and state funding agencies. The federal funding agencies require the environmental information document. So we finalized it in June of 2023. And per the required format, it examines alternatives and then it recommends an overall project and it does cost estimates for those projects. So I understood that the projects that are recommended in the PER, some of those are the basis for your Water Trust Board application. So next slide. So these were the alternatives that we examined in the PER, and then the recommended project ended up being a combination of these. So you're required to list the no action alternative, but we also looked at aquifer storage and recovery, which would be storing water underground in the well fields during low demand times of year, and then being able to recover it during higher demand times of year. Alternative 3 really looked at how many wells would you need to meet demand going forward under declining production, and putting more wells further out in the well field. So that meant you would have to put in a tank and a booster station in the well field. And then we looked at all this under a continued 1% water conservation per year for the 20-year planning period. And then we included the critical asset replacement projects that were listed in the asset management plan, which was prepared by another firm. But that report had identified projects that they felt were critical in the water system. So if you want to skip forward then to, I think it's slide 28, talks about the geophysical surveys. So essentially what in the PER, when we look at the demand, and even with the assumptions we made for demand, basically we're forecasting that the overall quantity of water demand stays the same over the 20-year period. But since the supply is diminishing, we talk about all the things that you have to do. Part of the long-term solution is the Eastern New Mexico regional water system, but you also need to do water reuse and recharge, and you got to keep putting wells in the well fields to keep up with the declining production. So next slide. So this is just the map showing the Eastern New Mexico regional water supply project. Next slide. And this map is showing essentially the locations of the components of the recommended project. Well, this is showing aquifer storage and recovery. So we looked at two options for ASR. One was recharging the water that you're not using during winter months from the Eastern New Mexico project in the Sandhill well field, which is the well field north of town. And then the other aquifer storage and recovery project that we outlined was recharging in the Blackwater well field, and that would be with treated effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. So those are, they're somewhat different in the level of effort because there's advanced treatment that would be required beyond the treatment that you already provide at the wastewater treatment plant in order to recharge water to the aquifer. Whereas the water that's coming from Eastern New Mexico isn't going to require that advanced treatment. So those are the two ASR projects that are outlined. Next slide. So under the assumptions of the PER and a 20-year look ahead, and the assumptions were 100 gallons a minute from each well. Sadly, under the declining production from the existing wells, that calculates out to 79 new wells. Now that's a rough number. We hope that we would get higher production from the wells that are further to the east, closer to the state line where the aquifer is a little thicker. But we have to have some assumption for the purpose of the PER. So this slide is showing the existing wells, and then the colored lines are the pipelines connecting those wells. And then we're also showing future wells and future pipelines and a new tank and booster station. So we needed to map this all out in order to quantify it, in order to estimate the cost of all of that infrastructure. So this is the basis of the cost for that alternative in the PER. Next slide. So like I say, the assumptions for the supply projections for groundwater wells were 100 gallons a minute is the initial production from each well, but then the wells will continue to decline in production. So you're going to put them in at 100 gallons a minute, and then every year the production declines. And we're using 3.6%, and that was based on us just looking at the historical decline in production from your existing wells. Next slide. So one of the scope items in our contract was to conduct geophysical surveys in the well field, and you can go to the next slide. The area that we targeted for the new wells was state land. And so in order to do geophysical surveys, we needed to get permitting from the state land office. And then they implemented a new requirement, which was archaeological pedestrian surveys were required over the transects that we were going to do the geophysical surveys. So what happened with that is that we reallocated the money that was to be used for the geophysical surveys to the archaeological pedestrian surveys. So it was quite a bit of money. It was somewhere in the range of $150,000. So those are complete at this time, and we should be getting the report from the archaeologist at the end of this month. So we're hoping that the city, through your Water Trust Board application, can find the money to do the geophysical surveys, which we're recommending in order to identify the best location for the next wells. So under our prior PER, we recommended drilling test holes to try and determine the best locations for wells. But we found that, you know, through experience, we did 3 rounds of test holes. We found that it just wasn't a very accurate way of predicting what the production from the wells would be. So that is why we recommended and included the geophysical surveys, which basically is a technique to map the underground, what it looks like underground, and hopefully identify paleo channels, which are the most promising for water production. So it gets done with this technology that's non-invasive. It's there's 2 phases to it, but it's basically a 4-wheeler towing a sled. And next slide, we've got some slides, I believe, of the equipment that would be used, but the purpose is to determine the depth of the water table and the depth to the bedrock. So your existing wells are drilled down to the red beds. So that's kind of the stopping point as far as the depth of the wells. And the goal is to identify the optimum saturated thickness in the aquifer for new supply wells. Next slide. So there's 2 phases that are proposed for this. The first one is electrical resistivity, which analyzes the electrical characteristics of the sediments. Next slide. And this is what the equipment looks like. So like I say, it's non-invasive equipment. It's pretty small in nature. Next slide. And then phase 2, we would analyze the results from phase 1, and then we would identify the location where we want to do seismic refraction. So that is for additional detail, and that refines the depth to bedrock. Next slide. So this is the equipment for the seismic refraction. Next slide. Okay, well, with the seismic refraction, there's basically geophones that are laid out across the ground surface as part of that. So the recommended project in the PER, go to the next slide, like I say, is the combination of the alternatives that were examined or in the PER. And so, for example, 2A and 2B are the 2 ASR alternatives, and then alternative 3 is the groundwater wells. Alternative 4 is conservation. This table is just showing the required format for the life cycle analysis. So it includes the capital cost, the O&M cost, the salvage value of any infrastructure at the end of the planning period, and then you use those items to calculate the net present value. Next slide. And so, you know, we just wanted to emphasize that all of this assumes this, continued reduction in demand, not only in your average daily demand, but also in your summer peaking factor. So the water system has to be able to meet the peak demand, your top day out of the year. And so a lot of times that's quite a bit different than the average day demand. It could be anywhere from 2 to 5 times your average day demand. And then offsetting your demand with water reuse, which that will help the peaking factor as well. Next slide. And this is the map that's in the PER that's depicting all of the components of the recommended projects. So the new wells, the aquifer storage and recovery. And then there's some text about the ones that are not infrastructure. Next slide. So I don't know if you wanted to get into the detail of the phasing, but we essentially took the recommended project and it's of course a lot of money and divided it into what we felt were reasonable chunks. And so there are 3 phases described in the PER. The first 2 phases are 5 years each, and then the next phase is 10 years. So within each phase, there are new wells. There's monitored wells that are left in each section. And then there's the planning components for aquifer storage and recovery, and including the advanced water treatment. That's what the AWT acronym is. And then some of the critical infrastructure replacement. Next slide. So phase 2 is within the next 10 years. So you can see the components of that. So it's a lot of wells in each phase. And then in this phase, we're talking about installing 1 injection well at Blackwater Wellfield and 1 at Sandhill Wellfield. The piping to connect the Eastern New Mexico Regional Water System project to the injection well. So of course, this assumes that project has gotten to Portales by that time. And then we also had a 3 million gallon tank. So that was input from city staff that there was a need for a tank in the west part of the city to support proposed development. So what's also included in here is replacing 4-inch asbestos cement distribution piping. So that's an obsolete pipe material that needs to be replaced. Next slide. And then phase 3 is everything else that didn't get done in the first 2 phases. Next slide. So these are the estimated costs by phase, which include construction cost, non-construction costs, which is planning studies, engineering, pilot testing, land acquisition, easement acquisition, permitting, environmental and geotechnical investigations, 25% contingency, the gross receipts tax, and then the total. That's the bottom line. Next slide. This is some information that's just taken directly from the PER on the process for permitting, because the permitting is complicated, in particular for supplemental wells. So a replacement well, it's pretty straightforward to permit, but by definition, a replacement well is drilled within 100 feet of the original well. And then whatever the water right is and the amount of water that's permitted to be withdrawn from that well just carries to the replacement well. But with the supplemental wells, you're subject to the restrictions on the particular basin from the Office of the State Engineer. So one of the things that happened with our latest well drilling project for Portales was we went through the process of applying for permits for 2 supplemental wells. And so that's 2 brand new wells. And then the amount that OSE was willing to permit them for was much smaller than we wanted it to be. And the city made the decision not to drill those supplemental wells because they didn't think it was worth the cost, for example. So it's because this Portales Basin is closed to new appropriations, then you have to identify a water right that you transfer. So part of the DBSNA scope included groundwater modeling to support permitting. And we did an initial swag at the groundwater modeling, but we really need to identify the locations where we're going to apply to put new wells and then do the modeling that supports that. And we also met with the city, with the Office of the State Engineer, to discuss getting a variance on the rules for the basin, because there's a restriction on the amount of drawdown per year, you know, the decline in per year from the OSC. So it's, I just wanted to mention that there's some discussion of that in the PDR, and that there's a portion of our scope to support the city with that effort. So that is what I have for you. Do you have questions for me?
Have any questions from the council?
Jennifer, this is Eldon Merrick. The monitoring wells that they're requiring are basically a well that is going to monitor the amount of drawdown of the aquifer that is not being pumped out of, correct?
Yeah, so it wouldn't measure drawdown because those monitor wells are too small to have pumps in them. So they're basically, you're just monitoring the static water level at those locations. But it leaves you a place to do that, right?
Right. But you are basically monitoring the drawdown of the static water level because of the pumping activity around that monitoring well.
Oh, the decline. Yeah, so you would be monitoring the decline. I guess when we refer to drawdown, typically we're talking about when you turn the well pump on, how much does the water level go down?
Right.
But yeah, there's a decline overall, right? In the aquifer, mainly because the Ogallala aquifer recharges so slowly that it's just being mined. So the water level has been, as you've seen in the Charlie Wilson reports, the water level's just been declining.
Right.
Year after year.
And the technology that you're using to map the area, the physical mapping, it's a proven technology, is it not?
Yeah, we've used it for other clients. Exactly. It's a subcontract. It's pretty specialized. The subcontractor that we're using is out of California. But yeah, it's a good method to identify really what's under the surface, because other than that, you have to put in a hole. And then if you put in a hole, you only get that one spot. So the geophysical survey transects that we described are like 250 feet apart. Sorry, I should have shown you that map, which is not in the presentation, but what we've done is described a grid where the lines are 250 feet apart going one direction and 1,000 feet apart going the other direction. So we're really getting a comprehensive look at the subsurface conditions within the section. And we picked the 250-foot spacing specifically because of what we know about the spacing of paleo channels in that area. We don't want to miss one. Like if the spacing was too far apart, we might miss a paleo channel.
Right. I have seen a picture of that map, and it's just basically a grid of rectangles end to end. And because you're pulling the sled east and west, and then you turn around and you go north and south at a different interval. And it creates that grid pattern for that state land that we're looking at drilling in. But also.
Yeah, and yeah.
You touched on it. For us to file for a permit to drill, we actually have to know the location of the well that we're wanting to put in. We can't just go and generically ask for 10 well permits and then go put them wherever we want.
Exactly.
So
yeah, it's tied to a
that
specific coordinate.
right. I just wanted to make that point clear to the public that you know, it's been discussed about us getting well permits to go out there and and drill wells, but we have to know a location. And in my view, just from talking to state agencies that we've gone up and tried to request money, if we go up there and ask for money for these wells to be drilled, if we show them the science, the data that you're gonna create with this geofencing survey, we have a better chance of receiving that funding than we do if we just go up there and say we want to go out here and try here and try there. And so if you've got that data to back up where we're wanting to drill, then we've got a better chance of receiving the money.
Yeah, and like I say that the data from the geophysical surveys will be input to the groundwater model as well.
Right.
So that's what we really want, is to be able to, like you say, that's part of the science, is taking the geophysical survey information, putting it into the groundwater model, which is a model provided by OSC. And then we do the modeling, and then we basically share it back with them. And then they can see what the effects are, because the model is measuring the effects on neighboring wells and et cetera. And I know the position that was taken with the meeting we had with OSC was, look, there's got to be a variance, and it's legitimate because the city will be retiring wells as you go along and then putting in new wells. And so there needs to be some recognition of that.
But just the way the general physics of it all work, when we've got a well field out there and we've got established wells that we've been pulling the water out of, to do a replacement well and move over 100 foot and drill down, we're not going to gain anything as far as how much water is in the hole. Or the only reason that you do that for the most part is if you've had a casing collapse, or you've had a well collapse, or something happen to the well that caused it to be inoperable to pull the water from. So then you can set over, and if you've got a good water source, you can set over within 100 foot and drill another well to recuperate that. But if you've got a static level that's been pulled down because of the existing wells, it's not going to gain you anything to go back then that 100 foot and drill another well.
Yeah, unless the well is corroded. I mean, some of those are old ag wells that are, have gotten gummed up, right, with deposits and such and that. But you're right. But with our last project where we drilled 6 replacement wells, 2 of those replacement wells produced less than the wells that they were supposed to replace. And so we did not end up equipping them. So yeah, that's an illustration of exactly what you're saying. There's
Right.
You're not going to get more water.
Right. And the point about you trying to find paleo channels, that's where there's more of a strata of water, correct?
So the paleo channel you could think of as like a stream deposit from, ages ago or whatever, where the sediments are such that it holds more water.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's maybe there are coarser sediments, rocks. It's like a stream bed under the surface.
You can kind of see that off of the data whenever you look at the depth of the wells that we have out there in the well field, where they were drilled to red bed. The ones that are deeper, where they were at the 200 foot or deeper level, are usually our better producing. Better than one that's say at 140 and 160 foot. Because you've still got a deeper surface
column of water.
Strata.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned the archaeology report. How critical is that?
Well, the archaeologists did not find anything, but there were no findings. but the area had not been previously surveyed. So he couldn't refer to any previous surveys, but now this is essentially your clearance. So, now it has been surveyed. Now this will be registered and documented that nothing was found out there.
But I was wondering, because they don't find no little mice or anything running out there. Okay.
No, in fact, so I should have mentioned the transects, the total length of transects that the archaeologist did ended up being something like 200 miles. And partly, he initially gave us a cost and, estimating the duration that it would take him to do the first 130 miles or something. And then he came back and said, well, we haven't found anything. So it's going faster than we expected. You want us to add more mileage. So we added 30 more miles twice. But we thought that was a good idea because it gives you more opportunity to expand the geophysical surveys. It's needed for the permitting of the geophysical surveys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer, Ms. Hill, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate your time and all of the effort that you did for your presentation.
All right. Well, nice talking to you. And we're available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, next is discussion items. Item 1 under discussions is the Water Advisory Committee update. Mr. Merrick?
We had our first meeting of the Water Advisory Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Public Works. We basically just met and tried to get a direction that we wanted to go and to pursue. And part of that was defining that we needed to stay on course with our conservation. Conservation is one of the things that I know it was noted that it doesn't cost money. And if you're a homeowner, you're probably thinking, well, it does cost money because I'm losing property value if I can't water my grass or if I can't make my yard beautiful. But there's other ways of making a beautiful yard without having to waste our precious water on it. And I know conservation is something that we need to continue to do. And we marked that as one of our deals. The other thing was money, because anything we do is going to take money. Anybody that runs a department or is involved with the city knows that you've got to have the money to be able to do the things that you want to do. And for us to be able to expand our well field and try to find more water so that we can hopefully someday be able to come off this stage 3. We're going to have to drill more wells. We're going to have to find more water because, as Mike Davidson mentioned whenever he got up and spoke, and thank you for robbing a lot of my stuff that I was trying to say. We're going to have to start getting together before the meeting to find out. But anyway, lost my train of thought. The new wells. It's gonna take us finding more water and exploring further over into that state land that is east of us. And that's gonna cause us to have to tie those back in with pipelines, and as she mentioned already, the further out we go, the more pressure demand it takes to get it pumped to the tanks. So we're gonna have to look at putting a storage tank out there and a booster pump to get that water where it needs to be. All of these things are gonna take money and they're gonna take time. I wish that we could just snap our fingers and say, well, we're gonna solve this issue in the next 6 months, but I don't think it's gonna happen. So I think everybody just needs to prepare and try to do what they need to as far as conservation. Because I don't see us coming off of this stage 3 until we can make a difference on the output of those wells. And these were all things that we discussed in our committee. We watched this presentation with PBS&A. It's mind-boggling to look at that dollar figure at the end of that and see over that. How many year plan was it? 20. She's talking about $260 million to accomplish all of those things. And she does a lot of money for a little town like Portales. We can't do it on our own, so it's gonna take a lot of state funds to do it. But I don't know if we would have to drill all that many wells. We've got to drill enough that we can meet that decline that we're seeing every year in our production. And one of the things that wasn't shown is our peak demand is close to 5 million gallons a day. And to do that, we are already at 1,000 gallon a minute deficit, what our wells will produce. So there's no way we could reach that 5 million gallon a day peak demand that we've had in the past. And the only way to keep from having to do that is to stay in that stage 3. And I know everybody's hates to hear that, but I don't see any other options until we can find that other water. And even the new plan that we've designed, they're going to come up with. We can't really pass it at this time because we're lacking 2 meters to be installed to be able to accrue the data that we need to be able to enforce that new plan. And those have already been ordered, but they won't be here for another month and a half, I think. Yep. And then we've got installation time, and we've got some other things. So until we can get those 2 meters put in and be able to use the data that we have referred to in this new plan, then I don't think we should be passing, because we don't know that the data is going to be correct. So that's basically what our discussion was during the committee. We did talk about reaching out to EPCOR just to have them come in and do a study. I did reach out to Mr. Bailiff, and he had been in conversation with our mayor, and they are looking at setting up a meeting to come and present some ideas to us. So hopefully that'll be in the near future. I think that about gets it.
I would just like to kind of touch on the comment that Mr. Davidson made. You know, we want our data to be based off of the same time every day, not at the peak hour where it's the hottest, not whenever it's the coldest, but have actual data to do that. And after the meeting the other day, I thought to myself, well, we need to still do that with our seasons as well. Because right now, in the coldest time, when we're not utilizing the water as we would in the summertime, we need to have that exact data for the summer as well. So I really appreciated that comment that you made, Mr. Davison. And if there's anything that you'd like to add as being part of that committee, you're more than welcome.
Right now,
Yes, sir.
I just want to touch on one thing that's is kind of a slap in the face, but we're getting a 3.6% decline per year. So that's the equivalent of losing 1 well per year. So we've got to come up with a new well per year to stay even.
Where we're at, right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
So at any rate, that was something that kind of shocked me. And I just wanted to point that out. Eldon covered the rest of it.
Also, see where it is.
Mr. Love, do you have any?
You're part of that committee. I was wondering if you had anything to add.
The only thing I have to add as far as that presentation there was that reclaim water. I don't think that's even feasible in this area. I think the formation's not even stable enough for that. That's my opinion.
To inject it,
Yes.
not necessarily to be able to treat it, but
Well,
to
yeah, you
inject.
can inject it, but I think Texas would get it in the process. I don't think it would benefit us. It's not something that you could capture in this area.
I got you. You're just putting it back into the overall aquifer,
Yeah.
so it's gonna
Filter
keep
down
going,
the drain.
keep going to low.
That's my opinion. They can tell you more about that.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted to bring up, thank you guys for adding what you said. This committee that we're gonna be having, it's a working committee. It's a working advisory committee. And we're gonna be meeting every other week. So on the off week that we don't have council, we'll be meeting. We're scheduled to meet again next Monday. And so we've also called in some experts. We're gonna have Charlie Wilson present, not necessarily in person, but via Zoom. And then also our engineers. So they have been working with us. They know, so we've got expert people and we're going to be reporting to you on our council night. So that way we know and you know that we're not out of water, but we're kind of behind on what we're doing right now as far as finding water. And it's a working effort between the council, this group, this committee, people from the community. And so we all need to work on this together. So it's continuing. It's not going to be a one-time meeting. It's like, okay, this is where we're at. Okay, we'll let you guys know in 6 months where we're at again, but it's continually, we're going to continue working and meeting. So we'll be having reports to you every council meeting we have. So.
Yes.
On your unclaimed building, and you know as well as that I'm on the water and boil also, and our main objective with our new metering system is to find out where the water loss is. Where it's at, what we can improve to fix that. I think the city needs to be, your unbilled water is the same thing, it's water loss, I don't care how you put it, it's water loss, so you need to do something about it. One way or the other, and I know it's the same as ours, it's aging infrastructure, what it is.
It's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and we just gotta get them all put together.
Yes, sir. Mr. Robinson.
I respectfully, Councilman Merrick, you've indicated we're gonna bring EPCO in to advise us. But one of the things I like to, before we bring them in, I would like for us to talk to the city of Edgewood and see what experience they had with EPCO and why did they leave, why they abandoned each other. So I think before we start bringing them in to advise us, I would like to know what information our sister city had with EPCOR, and perhaps they provide us that information. And if that, and I don't know if EPCOR is we should just jump on that bandwagon at this point. So I think we ought to contact Edgewood.
I don't think anybody's ever suggested jumping on the bandwagon.
Excuse me, sir. My opinion.
Okay.
And you're entitled to your opinion, Oscar.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's wrong, and I'm not saying that we should go with that quote. I just want to hear what they have to say.
But I thought I heard you say, sir, excuse me, that we need to bring EPCO in to advise us. That's what I heard you say.
I don't think I said that we needed to bring them in to advise us.
Okay, well, stand corrected.
I said that we should bring them in to look at our system and tell us what they're capable of doing with our system.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say none of that. I
It's,
must have been hearing other
it's an
things.
option. And we need to be looking at all of our options, not just keeping a straightforward view that we've had in the past. We need to be spreading out and looking at everything that we can to come to a solution to this.
Well, all I'm suggesting is that we take that credibility out. And I would take that myself. I would contact Edgewood and see what problems they had with it. That's all I'm suggesting.
Mr. Rackler.
Yes, I just want to expand discussion a little bit further, and I appreciate everything that was talked about so far as the well field and stuff. But I don't want us to put on the back burner, making sure our fluent water is working better. I still am not feeling like we're using that anywhere near its capability. Making sure we're getting these other parks online so that we're using that to its fullest capability. And I'll talk in public comment about the meetings I attend with soil and water conservation, but there's other avenues that we can continue to help on the conservation side. And continue to, you know, like Eldon's saying, we got to juggle a whole bunch of balls at once. I appreciate all that about we need more wells and we need more water, but we can do other things that help lower our consumption. Let's put that back.
Austin?
I'd just like to say I appreciate all the work that went into the water advisory. I think that it's important to get the community buy-in behind what decisions are being made on the council, and I just think it's very important to get community buy-in on everything we're doing. And it sounds like, you know, I don't like all the information that I'm hearing, but we got to face the facts, and I'll just hope that Michael, Diane, with your work, and Mr. Merrick just get buy-in from the public. And we may not all agree on it, but and to Oscar's point, as far as EPCOR, we ran on that we wanted to at least be open-minded and listen to what they have to say. I hope we can do that at least. I don't think we're jumping in conclusions.
Yeah,
We
and-
want to make a motion to make a decision, a quick
Right.
decision. This is a
Yeah.
important one, so.
And for the record, when EPCOR does come in, they're just giving us a presentation. That's not even to say that they are gonna want to work with us or if that our community is going to be a fit for them. So we have to be a fit for each other, but yes, we do have to look at all options so that we are saving our valuable resource. Anybody else?
The meeting that we had with the UPCOR, if you guys remember, whoever was there, they said they didn't want to come up here and do anything that wasn't a sure thing. That's what he said. And I think that to be able to cut down on, all, we need to bathe once a week.
I don't know about that, Jake. That will not go, Matt, I'm sorry. That we're not conserving. Sorry. Okay, we laughed about it and, you know, before we move on, we laugh about it, but that's our goal, is to make sure that we have potable water for those necessities that we actually need.
Oh, you know, and that's what you're saying. And we heard that. We just came from a municipal meeting in Santa Fe, and those meetings are so good. And I was talking to our city manager, Sarah, this morning, and I said, you know, a lot of times you get really, really good information. You hear from the state level and everything, but it's talking with other communities. And we think that we're the only ones having problems with our trash in our fire department, our police department, water. Oh my gosh, we talk to every different community, size community, small, big, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, you know, all these different communities. And it's like talking to somebody from our community, because like, wow, you guys have the same problems. We think it's just us. It's not just us. But, you know, we say we're running out of water, and this is what I just said. We are not running out of water because we still have water to take a bath. We still have water to drink. We still have water to cook our food. And that is what we need. This extra that we have to wash our cars and to wash our car, you know, and water our lawn and have green lawns. We live in the desert, and, you know, we all need to remember that we do live in the desert. So by us saying we're running out of water, we are not. I mean, we have to reestablish something, and we have to continue going with the flow, because we will, if we continue the way we are at the pace that we're going, we will run out of water. But thank goodness, thank God that we do have water for the necessary things. So we have to always remember that. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so bad and we're drying up and we're going to blow away. Well, you know, our grass might, but not us. We still are able to bathe every day and eat and run the water. So thank you.
Well, and thank you to the committee as well. Okay, item 2 is the water department update. This was Ashley, but you're going to take this one?
Okay, this one from Miss Ashley. And I just want to first say good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. our water committee is doing a really good job. Our first meeting was very beneficial, a lot of information and already off the right direction. And I just appreciate everybody giving their time because it's all volunteer, right? And to piggyback off of what some of the counselors have stated, we're not dried up, right? We still have water for our potable drinkable needs, and that's what our staff's ensuring that we have. That's why we went into the restrictions and we're requesting that we stay there until we can bring in more water to allow for the other needs and the other wants that everybody has in the community. With that being said, I just want to give a little bit of an update on our amazing water team. So what they're working on right now is they are diligently working to repair all active leaks, as well as preventative maintenance on the city sewer system. This is the same crew that is maintaining all water and wastewater system. Please, we ask you to please be patient with the understaffed department as we are trying to get every service order and or leak that is called in as quickly as possible, and we are hiring. If anybody's interested, you can go to our website. Gotta throw that out there. Our flow meters actually have been ordered, like Mr. Merrick stole my thunder and said. They are 6 to 7 weeks out from being installed. Then they will take about a week to complete installation and programming. The flow meters calculate the outgoing flow of the water for data and demand. And the tanks, at the tanks we currently have inflow meters. When the readings get read between 8 AM and 8:30 every single day. At the Water Advisory Committee, it was suggested that we can do another fancy graph like Chief Kathy did and show you guys what those readings are showing every day right now. So in a couple of months, we'll have some data to bring back to you guys and the community so you can see where we're at. And we'll also be able to have our outgoing flow as well. Moving forward, the fire hydrants, we are still looking for additional funding. Obviously, we have quite a few fire hydrants down. If they are black tag, doesn't mean that they're completely out of service. That may mean they just need some minor maintenance. And we have a crew working on developing that hydrant plan and getting some additional funding to replace the ones that are actually completely out of service. They're gonna start with commercial, then the school zones, then the industrial, and the larger areas that are now potential for fire hazard. And then they'll be working into the residential area. I did suggest that our Ashley reach out to Chief Kathy, and he said that he informed Miss Ashley that there is counting all the fire apparatuses that we have. We have approximately 10,000 gallons that will roll onto a fire at any time. I know we had some concerned citizens of whether or not we could put out these fires if there are no working hydrants in the area, but we have substantial amount of water that rolls with us. And then the purple fire hydrants offers additional fire suppression services. So we're doing good there. That is the update that we have this time, but like Councilor Merrick said, we will be presenting something at every single council meeting to keep the community up to date on what's going on with the water department. Thank you. Does anybody have any?
Yes, I would like to see us have a plan of exactly how many hydrants we're looking at. You know, I don't care if it's 1 a week or 3 a month or something.
Yes.
I mean, right now, we've known for how long they've been covered up in black. And as far as I know, we haven't uncovered one to check it yet.
Right. So they
That's-
are working on a plan, but like I said earlier in the report, they are short staffed. So their main priority right now is the leaks because we actually have 10,000 gallons rolling every single time.
Right.
So it is a priority, but repairing our infrastructure right now and not losing that extra water is a priority.
And that was my follow-up question. How many short are we on the water department? How many people?
I believe we're 4 short and we could use more staffing, just like a fire.
I had a question. Have we ever thought about subcontracting that out and to be more efficient on?
So we also subcontract through It's Quest. And right now, getting anybody to apply anywhere is a challenge for, I don't know, everybody. I don't know if you're facing it at your business, but we are definitely facing it here and across the state, like Diane Parker said, we are facing it everywhere. So even getting people to apply through It's Quest is challenging for us.
And that's just a different third-party company that repairs it? Okay.
So It's
No.
Quest is a staffing
I
agency
think-
that brings in and brings in.
So he's not talking about staff, he's talking about the actual hydrants, correct?
Fixing the hydrant.
Oh, for the fire hydrants.
Fixing the hydrant, yeah.
No, we have not talked about that. I mean, the one good thing about when we fix it is our people are trained on that fire hydrant. And so that's something that they've always managed. And it would be additional funding on top of replacing a fire hydrant to bring in another company, and that could become costly.
Just wondering if other
It's definitely
community,
worth looking into, and I will do that.
another community's done it and.
Yep.
You know, if we have a bad enough leak and you can't get to it, you gotta sub it out. I mean.
Yep.
You can't just let it go. Just curious.
Yes, and I absolutely will bring you some more information on that.
Mr. Mayor?
I was just wondering, we hired a company to come in and do those tests for us. Did they ever actually supply you with the information of what was wrong with the hydrants or why they wouldn't meet?
There's a small little breakdown, but it doesn't give a full picture. That's where the water department's going to be diligent, develop their plan, go out and survey the hydrants to see exactly what they need.
Right. Sounds like we might need to look at somebody else to do that work for us next time if they're not very adequate about telling us what's wrong.
There's limited people in the state that offer the hydrant testing. And our department could do it, but I did not want to tax fire department personnel with doing it.
But if I understand it right, Chief, when you guys were doing it, when you tested each one, you knew exactly what needed to be done to that one, even if you covered it up for the time being. Excellent. At least you knew when you did it, what it needed.
Well, and
Correct.
historically, we weren't allowed to black tag. We turned in a work order to the water department. And they to address.
Anybody else? Okay, so thank you for the update. Next, we move on to action items, public utilities. Action item number 1 is notice of meetings and intent to adopt ordinance 769 for the cross connection control and backflow prevention plan. It's not actually.
Okay, so this is gonna be in addition to our water plan, and it's an additional added ordinance. And I'm gonna read off what Ashley wrote because she's the one that's been spearheading this, so she has a little more information on it. So what she has written here is the cross connection control plan and backflow prevention plan are for the health and safety of our potable water. The purpose of this plan is to offer help, establish and enforce city policies and procedures and responsibilities with our cross-connection control and backflow prevention plan for our city water system. The goal of the cross-connection and backflow prevention plan is to help protect the public potable water from contamination or pollution due to the backflow of contaminants or pollutants in the city's water system, to promote the elimination or control of cross connections, actual or potential, between the city water system and customers' water system and any non-potable water system or industrial piping system. To provide guidance for the maintenance of a continuing cross-connection control program that will systemically reduce the risk of contamination or pollution of the city water system. This plan is intended to be used as a guide for staff whose responsibilities include enforcement of the city's cross-connection and backflow prevention ordinance. And if you would like more information on this, if you would just reach out to Ashley or Christopher Mendoza, they'll be more than happy to get that information to you. And just to give you a little history, this plan was started in early 2021, and we're not sure why it was never brought back to be adopted as an ordinance, but Ashley found it. She's really good at what she does, and here we are bringing it back to you guys to potentially, hopefully adopt it as an ordinance.
You've got a lot of information in here about that.
Yes.
I'll read some.
Yes.
Do we have any questions for Sarah?
So a lot of this is because of we have a lot of people that are currently drilling their own wells to water their yards. And if it's set up where they just pipe into the yard watering system, there's not a problem with that. But where we have a problem is if when they tie that well into the existing lines that supply water to the house and don't put in a backflow preventer, then the water coming out of that well could go into our system, which is not treated, and cause contaminants. So just a word to the public, if you're gonna put in a well, make sure that you've got backflow preventers and that you've got your system isolated from ours. I don't have a problem with someone drilling a well and supplying water to their house in times of need, but they need to keep it separate from our system. And that's part of what this plan is.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask, because I read in here where they're doing that.
Yeah.
And how to prevent them from connecting to our system.
And then anytime that there's a water valve shut off or a shortage of supply, there's a siphon effect that occurs also. And draws that water in, even if they're supplying it to their house and they don't have a valve to shut it off from our system, it's gonna pull that water in because of that siphon effect, so. There's a lot of things to think about whenever you're putting in your own well and tying it into your system, and it needs to be done properly.
Mayor Pro Tem, also, how are we gonna police this? How would we be able to know if someone is doing exactly what Meredith just said? Are we have a police, another staffer to go out there and check on this, or how are we gonna check it?
So what we can do is work with homeowners when they're drilling their wells, and the other thing is if we have an area that shows that we have something wrong with our water system, we'll be able to track it back to the homeowner if they didn't put a cross contamination prevention system in. There's no real way to police it per se, but there is ways that we can establish where it's coming from if we have any issues.
How fast can we isolate that from getting?
Well, I'm gonna be confident that we're pretty fast because we're adding the new valves in every single time we have a leak, so we're upgrading our system constantly. So I think we can get it to it relatively fast.
Where we shut it off?
Yeah, and you know, they do water testing constantly, so they are on top of testing our water all the time at different areas in the city. So it should be relatively easily to figure out where we need to isolate to.
And I didn't read in here, and maybe I just missed it. Is there a way where we can, is there going to be something that we do towards like homeowner that didn't put the backflow? Is there any repercussions for
So
that?
I believe they're in here. I haven't seen that. I hadn't read the whole policy myself, but I'm certain that we have something in there as far as what it is, even what we can do behind it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I read that somewhere, I'm trying to remember where it was at, but
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
this is a lot of words. A lot of words, a lot of pages, and not so point. It's just, it's beyond my comprehension at this point to vote on something like this, with this magnitude, with the possible potential of we're making a mistake, past mistake, sin, they're approved. So I'm gonna ask if we could, bring this issue back to the table.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
you're not voting on it tonight?
We're not voting on,
No.
I thought she mentioned it was an action item.
It is a notice of intent action item, but you're not voting on it. You
Oh,
still
it's
have
a notice
you
of
still have-
intent, it's not an action.
Right,
Oh, okay,
yes,
thank you. Thank you.
So this will be back in,
30 days,
In
30 to
days.
45 days, yeah.
yeah, so
Okay.
like in 2 years. 3 months.
So I was, what I guess I'm saying, thank you, because I need to read the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yes, and please reach out.
Yeah.
Come see us if you have questions,
Okay.
and we'll sit down with the water department and we'll go over any of your questions or concerns.
If I could,
Yes,
that's kind of the point I made last meeting about separating action from discussion. Because to me, this is discussion.
Well, you
If
have
we're not voting, it's not an action item.
well, we have to
not
take
have an
action on the
item, just a
intent,
Notice of intent, yes.
so we are taking action on the intent.
You have to take an action item on the intent to adopt it. Or not.
Okay,
Okay,
But you're not voting on the plan itself, you're taking action on the notice of intent.
so
Right.
bring it back,
To adopt,
with advise everybody to read it.
Yes.
yes, do research.
Research.
Okay, any further discussion?
I was just gonna make a comment, and it's almost like a red flag water deal, but if someone just calls in and turns off service, we might need to check, and make sure that they haven't drilled a well and, you know, stop at service with the city to supply it on their own. Like I said, I don't have a problem with them doing that, but that may be an indicator of people that we need to check. Make sure that they have installed this backflow preventer.
That's a good way to look at it, yes.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, what is the pleasure of the council?
I move that we, approve the notice that we can bring back to the council.
Second. Okay, Danielle, if you don't mind calling the roll, please.
Sure. 1 second. Okay. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Reckler,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We will see that item in about 30 to 45 days. So next item is action item for the clerks. Item 1 is recommendation for approval of resolution number 2024-02, compliance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act resolution. And Ms. Swolz, please.
Okay. This is, this particular resolution, the Open Meetings Act resolution, is something that the city of Portales attempts to present to the council at least once a year. We try to renew this and reestablish this as something that we follow, protocols that we follow. And it is patterned, our resolution is directly patterned from the New Mexico Open Meetings Act resolution. And you've got it before you, so hopefully you've read it. But it's just reiterating what the Open Meetings Act is about and why it's there and how we practice Open Meetings Act in our community. And it's outlined for you. And along with the resolution, which dictates or mentions exactly how often we meet as a council, what particular days of the week that we're meeting and the time. So that it's clear, not just for you people as our counselors, but for the community. Because this policy, this resolution is posted on our city website and it's made available to our community members to refer to. It's an important resolution, one that we need to continue to follow. And so I encourage the adoption or approval of this resolution. And at the end of the resolution, you're going to see also another important piece of information, and that is the notice of schedule of regular sessions for the City of Portales City Council. And we also try to post this once a year. All of the regular sessions, we attempt to get them on a document that can also be posted to the city website. It can be made available as well by printing in our Eastern New Mexico newspaper so that the community is aware of our upcoming meetings. And the document in the resolution approves the way or dictates the way we follow and set up our meetings and whether they're canceled, whether there's room for emergency meetings or emergency cancellations. And in fact, you're going to see on the schedule that's provided that we did have to change December dates from the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. We had to move that because of the way the holiday fell. And that's Christmas and then New Year's. It made it a little difficult to keep it normally. So we made a change there. So if you want to look that over, ask questions, then I'm asking for your approval of these documents.
Thank you, Danielle. Does anybody have any questions for Danielle?
I have a statement here with him.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that on the agenda, it's resolution 2024-02, and in the documents, it says 2024-04, but it is 2024-02.
Okay. Any questions?
I'd make a motion that we approve 2024-02.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Merrick and a second by Miss Diane to approve resolution with the correction on the actual document to move to show resolution 2024-02. Ms. Swopes, can we get a roll call? Yes, sorry. No, that's fine.
Okay. Roll call for the Open Meetings Act Resolution 2024-02 and the schedule of meetings for 24-25. Mr. Merrick.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
And again, I want to repeat that there is a correction on the actual resolution to be 2024-02 and not 2024-04.
Okay, next item is request for approval to delete finance records in accordance with resolution 18-19-21 municipal clerks record retention policy.
And that's me again. This is something we don't do necessarily on a regular basis as far as destruction of records, but it is something that we follow the dictates of the New Mexico statute. And I included in your package a very lengthy document, which is for your benefit. It kind of will show you exactly what records are being destroyed or up for destruction and how often, and the way they're to be destroyed and the way we're supposed to present that information. So I only included that for your benefit, but we do try to present this once a year at least so that we can get a confirmation or kind of just a renewal of information for your sake and the sake of the community, that we do have a document in place, and it is resolution 18-19-21. It is the municipal clerk's record retention policy. And again, that lengthy document is part of what that policy is. And it's just a guidance for us to follow in the way we get rid of records.
Does anybody have any questions, Mr. Mayor?
So is this physical records or is this electronic records also?
It's a combination, and we're not destroying electronic records tonight, or, that's not what we're asking for. We're asking for tonight, for instance, I'm presenting a list of boxes of AP checks that need to be destroyed, and there's 3 different ways that those can be destroyed. And that's what we're planning on destroying, if you approve. We just have to let you know and then follow protocol if you approve the destruction of records. We do periodically get rid of electronic records, and those are listed in the retention policy. They're there. And so we have our own policy adapted to fit the New Mexico statute. And we do get rid of those according to policy.
Just in my way of thinking, electronic storage is a lot less cumbersome and easier to keep than the physical records. I don't have a problem with destroying the physical records as long as there's an electronic record of it. I just hate to see, there's always times where you go, man, I just need to go back to that date 20 years ago and pull that one bit of information out.
And I understand what you're saying, and I think actually that's why the document is presented the way it is. I'm probably failing to connect the dots better for you guys. And what this is the actual physical checks, for instance, not the electronic records that we have. Like you said, the electronic record is fairly easy to keep. And so as long as we have room on our servers, we work to keep that information.
And there are certain records you'll see that we can't destroy. Minutes can never be destroyed. Personal records, I think 75 years. So there's a lot of records we can't, but some of these our boxes are piling up, so it's time to get rid of what we can.
And I understand that. I just wanted to clarify on the electronic part of it.
And I'm back, here's like 1975 and further back, we've gone to get information.
And just for the record too, these are the physical checks. We're not doing anything with like our financial records, we still have to show where we balance our checkbook and our funds and everything like that.
Yeah, these are the accounts payable checks that were written, and we kept copies for so many years pursuant to this. And we're ready to get rid of these ones from 2020 and 2019.
Any other questions?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Did you go to the municipal league clerks meetings over there this time, or,
Last year, yes.
I have gone to them.
but you didn't
Yes.
go now?
I didn't go to the one from last week. I was
seen
ill.
The clerks and they were ready to do their meetings and everything, and I didn't see you over there.
No, I wasn't able to go because I was ill, so I had to back out. I didn't want to infect a whole carload of.
Well, I think you need
People.
to attend those meetings that are.
Sure.
Oh, yes, and they did attend the conference, the clerks conference last year.
Yes.
They're scheduled to go this year in November. They have a network that they get on board with, so
Yes.
it's a very good group to be a part of.
Yes.
Okay, if there's nothing further, what is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Mr. Lopez. Danielle, will you read the roll?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self.
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
yes,
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Danielle, thank you for all that you do. I know that you're coming into your new role and we're really excited to see your growth. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for everything. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Last item on the agenda is community service. Staff is seeking direction for a dangerous property that's located at 700 South Abilene.
Thank you. So I'm a little ill prepared. We'd asked the gentleman if he could be here to answer your questions. He had to leave a little bit early. So if he wouldn't have been here, we would have sat down with the translator and asked any questions I thought you guys were gonna ask, but we didn't do that. So I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. So this is a property that's right across the street from us, actually, 700 South Abilene. We brought this back in November at the end of its 90-day period to have it declared a dangerous structure. The 90 days has passed. The unique thing about this is I couldn't get a hold of any property owners. Usually when we send the letters out, good or bad, we hear from somebody. So we asked for an extension of time just to make sure our department could say we done everything we possibly could to get a hold of a property owner. We were able to get a hold of the property owner's dad, who did say his son, who is the owner, is on deployment. And that's why we've been able to get a hold of him. So we were supposed to bring this back for direction. So what we're doing today. The property hasn't changed much. Unfortunately, it's actually changed for the worse. This picture you can see up front with some of the vandalism used to be boarded up. Someone kicked it in. They went in, they did vandalize the home. A citizen sent me this. They took with their drone atop the building. Beware, I'm gonna probably be asking for a drone soon. Really cool. I do not have one. So we do have we can see some of the more structural damage. Go to the next one. And here's just some pictures of the back of the building where it has been boarded up. When we first started really doing these property cleanups, the complaints we received were, hey, their shingles are in my roof. Hey, I think it's gonna lower my property value. The overwhelming complaints we get now are we're afraid their house is gonna catch fire and catch our property on fire. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase of individuals sleeping in houses that are obviously abandoned. And they do create fire to keep themselves warm. And unfortunately, we've seen an increase of those buildings actually coming down. Quite a few buildings that were on our list are now burnt buildings that we'll probably have to start this process with or try to get them demolished. But as I said, the owner is away on deployment, active deployment. So we are here to seek what you would like me to do as far as direction. Usually the directions are start the court hearing, do an extension of time where you tell me when you'd like me to bring this back to you for an update or to remove it off the dangerous property list.
Go ahead.
We're approaching that this property been like this for 20 years almost. And it's right across. Matter of fact, it's right back across by Mike Davis' place, right across the lake. I mean, Clinton Yard has always been this way, and I think we tried to destroy it, and I think we will stop at a courts on this?
I'm trying, that's what I've been talking with Sarah about. I don't know if this is one that we've tried, the courts held us up. And that's why I asked her to, whatever action you take today, I'm gonna take some time and try to figure out how we contact them we contact the base, and if it's in the military, even whatever branch of the military it is, the base could help us locate it.
Yeah, okay.
I like that.
The reason I brought that up, because I recall, we tried to get rid of this property before and it got sidelined, sidetracked by the courts. And now it's back to the same situation. And I don't think the current owner was the person involved with it at the time we tried to get rid of this property.
And we did reach out to NM, our New Mexico Self-Insurance Fund, the attorneys, because there are some loans that can't be defaulted when someone's on active duty. So we did ask if this process could continue with active duty. They said yes, that they continue to look in it, but as far as they were aware, that council could continue forward with it. Of course, we'd feel more comfortable with Steve also looking at his side to make sure.
Yeah, and that was my question, Steve. Is there anything that, legally that could affect us for Military Protection Act?
It might, I want a little more time to look into that, but to be honest with you, the property owner value would be enhanced if the city get the money to tear it down.
Yes.
It is a nuisance, and you can proceed with a nuisance. But at least at a minimum, like to give his family or somebody notice. I mean, if we can't figure out where he is, or they won't tell us exactly where he's employed, we need to get the family, they'll have them notify me, I'll get the family on notice, this is something we're doing.
Okay.
And his family was notified, that was the gentleman who was here. But he's had about 3 months of notice.
Yeah. So do we have a way to contact him?
I
Leave a number?
think Miss Tammy does have a phone number and it is on here. We do have a contact number that is on here. So
For the father, yes.
For the father. Ms. Rackman?
I just wanted to point out, I did walk through this property Saturday just to double check everything, because I was planning, being on planning and zoning, we thought we might discuss it, and we did afterwards, but it is without a doubt a very dangerous property. If someone, even if they are in there, kids, anybody that could walk right in that front window, and the floors are falling through.
And you walked in there? You walked in. That
I
was really
walked the
smart.
property. I did not walk inside the property. You can view in every window. You can walk around, but I did view the property, and got out and walked and looked through all the windows, and it's very, very dangerous. And he's owned it for some time, and there's been no attempt to do anything about it up to this point. Like Mr. Robinson said, it's been an eyesore for 20 years or more. And it's just going down. I think we need to proceed with the process. If it gets held up, it gets held up, but I think from our point of view.
Anybody else?
I was just gonna ask how long he owned the property or if anybody knew exactly.
I'm not sure. He's owned it while we've done the process, which we start with the postcards and letters last year and a little after January. So he's owned it for at least a couple years. That being said, I'm not sure when he acquired it.
This is not a side, this is really directed to this property. Property that we've decided is dangerous. But over there on K Street, that property still exists, and it's worse shape than this.
Which one is that?
Right next to bottom of the house, as you go down K.
Yes, sir. That one's actually been submitted and we're waiting for the court hearing to get a court order to clean it.
I mean,
Yes,
this
sir.
fire hazard, they got trash in the car. And
That's a very rough
and
property.
everything, and I wouldn't walk in there, I would be brave like Matt, I wouldn't walk in there. Because it's dangerous, and it's worse than this.
Yes, sir. We went through that as a cleanup property this last year. So we're just waiting on a court hearing. That'd be 509, 57, and 511 North Avenue K by Mr.
Yeah,
Massey.
K, it's on K.
Nancy?
Yeah, I
Yes, sir.
think so.
So yeah, hopefully they'll set a court date in the next couple months to give us
So
a court order.
it's gonna be.
Yes,
okay.
you gave us the direction to already move ahead with the courts, so we're just waiting for them to give us a court date.
That doesn't happen.
But we have the money set aside for the 3 dangerous properties you guys cleared out, so we can hopefully get that done in this fiscal year.
But this property here we're talking about on South Avenue, another problem, we have junior high school kids after school. When I drive my bus down through there, the young ladies and men are hanging out. And they hanging out over there. So we need to do something about this fast.
And so the city manager did let me know, even on her way here, that people were visiting the building right before this meeting.
That's very polite.
Yes. Okay, with no further discussion, what is the pleasure of the council?
Can we make a motion to proceed?
Second. Did I just
We have a motion by Mr. Self and a second by Mr. Robinson. Can we get a roll call on this one as well, Daniel?
Let me clear my roll sheet. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler.
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, with that, the motion carries. Next item is city staff, city council comment and staff. I start with staff.
I'd like to introduce our new CPO, Miss Lisa Gamble.
What?
Welcome,
And
Ms. Gamble.
Chief Procurement Officer. So she'll be handling all the purchasing contracts, RFPs, ITVs, all the acronyms. That she's learning about this week. So she's taking her CPO certification class this week. She's already done good day one, so we're excited to have her on our team.
Welcome, Ms. Gamble. Thank you. Anybody else?
If council would like to email and show support for Senate Bill 151, that's the EMS funding bill. It's going to the Senate floor, hopefully tomorrow. And then House Bill 88, that's the firefighter recruitment bill. Like the information, I can tell that.
Thank you, Ms. Austin.
I'm sorry, one more thing. So if you have been out to Rotary Park, our skate park's coming along very nicely. And they will be installing our playground equipment very soon. They're getting the ground ready for it, so that park's starting to look really nice.
Sarah, emphasize playground equipment very loud, because a lot of people seem to think the playground equipment has been eliminated.
No, so we did, just because of my fire history, I chose a firehouse playground piece of equipment, very large, that will be going, please tell me where it's going.
Between the two bills.
Between the two softball field or baseball fields, so it'll be going there, and then we have a smaller green one for the little bit littler kids that'll be going on the far end of the skate park. So we are replacing the structures and we are focusing on one park at a time. Rotary Park just happened to be the place where we could put the skate park, and so we decided to do playground equipment. With Joe's amazing grant, we're getting a basketball court, so we're really sprucing up this park, and each year we'll focus on a new park till we get them all up and nice.
Thank you. A lot of people in the community think that they're not gonna have playground equipment over there.
They are, and what Steve's removing that is still usable, some of it he will be putting out with the softball complex, and parents are excited to have that out there for the kids that go play. And so we're bringing it around to different parks if it does come apart easily and we can move it. Some of it's dated and it falls apart once we touch it, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Candio? Yes.
I would like to, make a comment. We do, get online. We do have meetings every first Wednesday of every month with the New Mexico Municipal League clerks and all the entities. At 2:00, with Miss Lisa Johnston and, every other municipal league clerk. Because it is required for us clerks to be certified as, our role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else from staff? Mike, we'll start with you, council.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I do attend the Roosevelt County Soil and Water Conservation every month on our behalf. I kind of took that on myself. It's not an appointed role, but I think our cooperation with them is very important. And over the months we've been together, we're starting to make some headway on some things they would like to work with the city on. One of the ones that we talked about this last meeting was recapture water, and I think it could be a really exciting thing. It may start with some of the county fire departments. But what we're looking at is some grant money that could possibly put in tanks, all of the guttering and all of the piping so that we could store water from rainwater, and then that way we could fill the fire trucks with those rainwater. Just another conservation possibility There are also some for landscaping that we're looking into that we would probably approach the council about at some point in the future. They are gonna come to a future meeting and talk to us about the cloud seeding project, which got a little traction in the legislature this time, and hopefully we'll get more. Because that's another way we can have more water is if we have more rain. So there's several projects on the horizon with the soil and water that I'm excited about, that I think we can take part with them, so. Look forward to that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Chief Kathy. We too, my family had a couple of emergencies that we had to call the fire department for, and you guys were like spot on. We appreciate you coming to our house at 1:30 in the morning. And we had like carbon monoxide. So that's a big thing. We've had carbon monoxide detectors in our house forever, but we thought that they were like still working, and we found out they were not. So it was a close one, but we appreciate it so much that you guys were there for us and everything. Also, I want to thank Chief Williams. I've been calling him a lot. There's unfortunately a friend of ours who is homeless in our community, and he's had lots of different problems, and I'm getting calls from his mom, and it's a real big concern. So I've been on fast track with the chief and his officers. They've just been great on trying to help take care of all this and trying to get him, help. And he's given me lots of information. So I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you both. You guys are great. Another thing, update on our street sweeper. What is the status of that? I noticed now that especially since we've had so much of the snow and that we have lots of debris now in our streets, street sweepers. Do we have?
The one that we use for the streets that we're waiting on part for.
Still waiting for a part?
Everything's up back order.
Oh my gosh, because we used to have that. We were still on back order from COVID. Are we still on COVID back orders?
We replaced that and then we had new parts, needed new parts.
Okay, it's something always. So, okay. So right now we don't have a street sweeper because I know we did have one at one point, but it was the states.
So,
The
and they're the
state
ones that do
Mexican.
all the state roads. We're not allowed to do that unless they give us permission ahead of time.
Okay.
And we're on a rotation, and it's kind of like our rotation. They give to us when they can because they have their whole district to do.
Oh, I see. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to thank Chief Kathy for the presentation. This is very good, very eye-opening. Hope that in the future that we can find some way of helping to get you some funding to be able to secure the people that you diligently train, because it's a shame that we put that much training into an individual and then have them leave because we can't pay them enough. And because they're overworked. So I hope we can remedy that someday. There is several bills in the House and the Senate that involve water. And one that Mike just mentioned was a cloud seeding pilot program that Senator Chatfield put through. I've heard that he's done this several times now, and it's failed to get a lot of traction, but this time it was actually approved as a do fast through one of the committees. So hopefully they might get some funding set up for that. I think it was $2 million appropriation to New Mexico State to administer the program. But and then there's appropriation bills and water fund bills that are being hopefully pushed through still. So we are in the running to get some funding. I hope it all goes through. But we have been contacting our representatives and senators from this side, pushing as much as we can. So we are doing what we can to try to get us some funding.
Mr. Lopez?
Well, we reached it with our legislators when we went on the, I'm visiting with them all the time. They said they were really looking good. As far as money, they were really going to help. From Moeedi.
Mr. Smith?
I think everybody covered everything pretty much. Chief, thank you for your work on the presentation.
Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, tomorrow, the 14th is, we have the FCAR meeting, and I'll be attending that. Kind of excited to go back up there. I met with Sandy and she was kind of glad that I was coming back on the board. And I would like to keep the council involved with them. And so we'll see where that goes. You did a good job up there, and I need to continue your work.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought
And
you were gonna say it was Sweetheart Day.
no, no comment. But the other thing is, there's a scammer going around our community, primarily selling a lot of product, and I don't mind mentioning the kind of product they're selling. They're selling these sun things that go on people's houses, and I think we need to investigate it. I don't know if they have a business license or what, but there's some. So Robert Garcia, it's all around.
Yeah.
And Mr. Garcia, a longtime citizen of this community, signed a contract with them. But his wife was smart enough to read through the contract and find grant. And she's found out that they had 3 days to relinquish the contract. But the problem is they're taking advantage of people in our community, and they're primarily focusing on the north side. And I think we need to investigate them. And I think maybe, when I talk with you and the chief, maybe help and look into that company. I don't even know if they have a business.
You were at my house.
They was at Jake's house too, yeah. I
Yeah,
heard.
you get us
I threw my
contact
one shot.
Jake ran them off his porch.
Well, I think a lot of times when we would have people come to our house, and it's been a long time since that's happened. And, they come and they say, oh, we're selling this. The first question I always ask is, have you been to the city to get a license to do this? Well, I didn't know I had to. And I said, well, hold on just a second. I can give you their number. Or I would even call Joanne. And Joanne say, nope, they haven't been here. And I said, sorry, you cannot be doing this until you go to the city hall first. So when you question them that and ask them that question, if they haven't, right away, they'll like, oh, wait, I didn't know I was supposed to. I think I just come in. No, so.
What I'm trying to say, Diane, these people are sophisticated enough. They got
Right.
people thinking that they're getting something free, and it's not free. And I think we ought to investigate the company and to see who they are and how frequently they're hitting our community. Because we got a lot of people have already signed contracts, but luckily for them, they call each other and say, and Jake ran the man off his porch. So we have to really look at that.
Okay, we
That's a
definitely.
serious problem.
If it's the same company that was out last year, they stopped at my house.
Oh, well.
I did a lot of inquiring into it. They are a legitimate business. They are pushy salespeople, and I did inform them that they could not go door to door without the permit from the city.
So they are legitimate.
Right. I asked them for their ID cards and permit from their city, and then I showed them mine.
Well, thank you, Chief, for doing that.
I don't know.
We don't know the same company.
I don't know if it is the same company or not, but
Well, it's checked with Mr. Garcia, because he actually was a little bit upset about it.
the solar panels are legitimate. They're a legitimate thing. I don't know about this particular company. I wasn't too impressed with the sales thing. They throw a lot of numbers around, probably get a lot of paper and sleight of hand type thing, but I mean, if you're qualifying for the loan, then that's where it's really going to get you. I think a lot of our citizens probably are qualified for that loan. But if anybody sees them out, they'll give us a call, we'll go and identify them and then we'll scan them.
Anything else, Oscar?
No, that's all.
Okay, for mine, I just want to thank the staff for the thank you card that you signed for my husband and I and our family. Sarah, I do have a request. We haven't had a finance committee meeting in quite some time. We have new people on that committee that need to be updated and informed. So the faster we could do that, the better. I don't think we have approved budget adjustments for second quarter that ended in December, and now we're fixing to hit another quarter. So if you could just get with Twyla to see what the holdup is, I'd appreciate that. And then we can get that scheduled. And then the speed bumps, the ones that I requested for the north side, are they still on back order or?
So we have to send out notifications to the community members, or we can get those all back, and then we determine from that point with Kelly and Stevens' crew if it's feasible. And we're starting to do a traffic study with Chief Williams, because some of the ones we put in have been questioned. And so we've added that protocol now, so it's, with all that said, we're waiting on the final preliminary report on whether or not we put that in there and think we do that.
Okay, and so if I could get an update on that next council meeting, that would be great, because I still have citizens that are questioning as to why certain spots of the community are getting them and our side is not.
No problem, we get some them over there.
Well, nobody goes down Jake's Road. Two, I just want one.
Speed bump right in front of his house.
I put a lot of nails.
That's what I'm gonna do.
To be fair, he never asked for it. I was on a street one day and I saw cars just speeding. And I called Steve right away and said, let's start this process over here, because they were going fast on the road. Yeah. And there was kids
Well, right
walking.
there in my street, they killed the little girl on my knees, about 3 years old.
Yeah.
And
And I was seeing
since
that.
then we put a four-way stop. And that didn't stop the speeders. So now that bump, man, it stopped.
That's good. Okay.
I'm glad we're discussing speed bumps. And Ms. Ferguson gracefully said it's in front of her house. But the problem with putting speed bumps on the street, we need to have a plan. We just don't stick them down because somebody said they have traffic on their street. If you look at that speed bump on Globe, it is ill-placed. And it's too close to the intersection. And it is a hazard for people, and there's a stop sign on both sides. And that speed bump is narrow. It should be a double speed bump if you're gonna put it there. And just a little 6-inch speed bump, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. It should be double like that rather than single. And I think that particular speed bump is in a traffic control area, and it probably should be eliminated. And that's too bad we couldn't. I don't want to get in a debate with a citizen, but also we have traffic control 2 blocks down, and we have traffic control at the stop sign, and the speed limit on that area is 15 miles per hour. So I really think we need to reassess where we place speed bumps, and especially that one. I think it's overkill. That's my own opinion.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
In my opinion, so even the stop signs, like the one that they're requesting on Ivy Street. Police department and the fire department had to go pull somebody out of a vehicle because they flew past that. The stop signs aren't stopping.
They don't help.
No, they don't help. They're flying past that. They rolled onto somebody's actual porch and they had to be helped that way. So even though we have stop signs in place, that's still not stopping the speeders and everything that's.
And like she's saying, it's eliminated the speeders, especially late at night, which is when they're really speeding.
Right.
'Cause
Well,
they're-
and you know, that's a section to where, you know, we're not gonna have those speed cameras in that area. So are they going on Globe? Yes, so even if they're going on Globe, at least they have that plus a speed bump. We need to really focus on all areas of the
And she
community.
called the other day and she said, please do not remove it. And I said, you have 3 minutes to come to council, or you can reach out to your council in your ward about it. She's asking us not to remove it.
Okay.
Due to safety concerns.
In all fairness, the speed camera just got set up.
Yeah.
Just.
Well, and just because the speed cameras are up doesn't mean that's gonna stop.
The poles are up, you know, electrical.
You need to let me know when
Poles
they're
and the
up.
signs are up.
Yeah.
Please let us know. when-
Please let me know when they're up.
But even with the signs
Yeah, so
up,
we don't speed.
it's not slowing people down, even with the signs up. So.
I think the speed bump on Globe may be okay, but I think it needs to be placed someplace else more strategically. to Advantage. It's not Advantage where it is. It's right there on the corner.
I think it is in a good spot because actually, once you get through that stop sign. I live just right, not too far from there, and I constantly hear cars racing up and down the road. I mean, they got the loud exhaust and they're just having races out there.
Well, it's a
Down
wide
the road.
street, they can race.
Every one of them that's north, south, so it's Abilene, it's Maine, it's. I think every one
But
of
they're
them
all
have stop
usually
signs.
sitting low enough to the ground that that speed bump wreaks havoc on them, so they have to slow down for it.
I could put higher ones.
I guess what my discussion here is, before we start putting speed bumps down. Before we start putting speed bumps down on the street arbitrarily like they are, we need to have a plan. How we're gonna put in, we need to have a discussion. I just think that particular speed bump is out of place. And you drive a commercial bus over that speed bump and stop at the stop sign and turn, and you got a pump at exactly 5 seconds. You're on the speed bump. It's not placed right. At least you're not thinking about everybody who uses the street area. So I think it needs to be replaced someplace else on Globe, if you want it on Globe, but not where it is right now.
Right now, it's the new starting line for people to speed the third speed.
Right.
And I agree with you 100%, because I'm going right there all the time. And not even going fast, you start off that stop sign after waiting for traffic to clear, and then all of a sudden you look up and they're stopped right in front of you. It's too close to that stop sign, so I think, in my opinion, and I sat and took video of it. Shared it, where people are coming up to that speed bump, stopping, and then it's just been too close to that stop sign. I mean, if you really want to try to use them to do something, I think we probably put one further north. And then maybe move it down south a little bit further.
Well, instead of putting 2, can I have 1?
I'm just wondering.
Can have mine for a while.
So I have a question. So on University, or right there by the university, does the university go through the same process as the rest of the citizens, or do they just place them? Because like they have what used to be Golden Library, I can't remember what the name of it is, Student Success Center. They have a speed bump there, then you go a little ways and then there's another speed bump there. So do they go through the city to get those placed, or is it coming from the university?
So it depends on if because right now we have our engineering looking at that street, so we can help the university redo it, because there are city streets. If they place them, it's one thing. I don't know on those ones if they went through the city.
Well, see, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Is it
Yeah.
not a city street?
It is a city street, but they will do safety protocol. I guess there's some type of agreement where they can do the safety type stuff, like putting in crosswalks, speed bumps, that type of thing.
On their,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because it's built into the road.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, with that, we are adjourned.